The Obsidian boss, who possesses enormous power and strength of high rank in the center of a fantasy world where only monsters are in authority, is the target of a fierce conflict that formerly took place there. We first meet our protagonist, Iwu, there. Iwu is tired of killing beasts of this type, and even the Obsidian boss alone is just an inconvenience to him. Iwu also has immense power, and just by looking at what level 100 is, we can tell that he has fantastic talent behind his sword. The protagonist is happy with the level that he will have killed the boss, and that's what motivates him to fight him. We also see how the boss attacks, and we see how a surface-installed turret that he uses to dispatch the animals. The protagonist fires a large burst of light at the beast. The attack was sufficient to turn the beast to ashes, and the protagonist then appears. Once more triumphant, he receives a message from the system praising him, giving him new stats and enhancing his skills. The protagonist initially appears to be a pretty cool character, so we're very disappointed to learn that the epicenter we previously saw is only the character that the protagonist has in his video game. In reality, our main character is a chubby boy with a complex who doesn't leave his room because of his love for games and lack of physical activity. Despite all the bad, there is one positive. By constantly playing the video game, he became incredibly good at it, to the point where he can actually beat it. His game is cut short when his cell phone rings. When he answers, he's surprised by the reprimand he receives from a fellow student. It turns out that the protagonist hasn't even attended class once, and the faculty is now calling him to return. His only response is that he's missed too many classes and no one cared, but now they do need him. The protagonist is on the phone with the star when the boy mentions something that occurred a year ago. The protagonist ends the call, avoiding the conversation, and says that he doesn't want to talk. He then turns to his desk and sees a portrait of a girl who perished in the aforementioned event. The protagonist blames himself for the girl's death, wanting to drink instead. However, in the midst of the protagonist's sadness, the phone rings again and he answers it. The protagonist is perplexed as to what it is. You see how their statistics are displayed on a screen, and it appears that this is the beginning of a session in a game. The protagonist's statistics aren't the best. They weren't even close to being the best. They were very bad. However, it did have a good number of game points, and by good fortune, the points can be exchanged for items. He now knows that what's happening is real, because the exchange has been successful. When the protagonist realizes that the game is real, he reasons that since the points can be used for anything, why not bring the girl from the picture back? However, there is a problem. The protagonist had run out of points, and needs 1 billion of them to do so. Although he's happy, he assumes that if he earns enough points, he will be able to bring the girl back. But while the protagonist is focused on this, he receives another message. The protagonist is collecting garbage because he gets points for it. When he succeeds in gathering up waste at their school, everyone looks at him like he's insane, which confirms his madness. What kinds of assignments will be fighting a beast or clearing a dungeon? If the goal is what keeps him firm, which is to bring back the girl, who's called Yuyi, the protagonist receives a message rewarding him for completing 50 tasks. And the prize is a type of roulette which can win prizes. However, if the goal is what has him firm, which was to bring back Yuyi, for whatever reason, the main character lets it go, since if he maintains it for 10 years, his score could triple. He then devotes himself to finding other ways to gain points. The main character was preoccupied with his phone, stumbles on a girl's breasts. He reacts quickly and apologizes, explaining that it wasn't on purpose. The girl didn't take it badly and says that she didn't think that a fat man would be so brave, referring to the protagonist. The girl then tells him that he doesn't have to do it and that he fixes it himself, which surprises the protagonist and prompts him to ask how he can make up for it. A strange purple frame then appears. The girl appears behind the main character and attacks him, severely damaging his arm, causing the system to start sending out alerts that he's been seriously injured. The main character was confused about that purple thing, but the girl uses an activated ability against the city separation to enclose the enemy in a space created by the user in which it's not possible to connect with the rest. The protagonist tries to calm her down and asks her if she were one like him, why not join forces and get points together? She responds with a laugh and mentions that points are earned by double murdering other players and that only beginners do the tasks. The girl only says that his blood is delicious because of the fat it has. The girl pounces on the protagonist and runs through him with her handgun, dealing critical death wounds. The protagonist decides to flee because he didn't want to die there, because he still has the goal of reviving the girl. However, thanks to the girl's ability, he only sees the other person as a mirage. The protagonist hadn't even reached the appearance of his goal when he was bleeding out on the ground, and the background system was alerting him that he was about to die. However, as the protagonist was about to pass out, he remembered something about the lottery prize and used the ability activating roulette. On the other hand, the girl enjoys witnessing the protagonist's suffering and remarks that because she's low level, the benefits would be quite poor. The girl laughs at the protagonist as he finishes dying, but only for a brief while, because as he lies dead on the ground, the lottery system stops spinning, and this time he receives a team of exceptional items. The girl is confused because she'd never heard of that. The protagonist, on the other hand, was recovering, which prompted the girl to attack him in order to stop it. However, as he approaches, an emerging blue light from the protagonist stops her and forces her to retreat. The girl realizes that something is wrong when suddenly, from the bottom of the light, a kind of sword almost reaches her and forces her to retreat further. Someone so new to the game can't exercise the power the protagonist already possesses. She's willing to teach him a lesson by showing him that the protagonist doesn't like to be underestimated and challenges her to a fight with him. Confident in his equipment, tells him to turn himself in, and the girl just laughs. Perhaps he's so ignorant as to believe that victory in the game is about the one who has the best weapons instead of the experience and how you fight. The girl stands in front of the protagonist and causes a combustion around it, injuring him, saying that it's frustrating that despite his best efforts, he's unable to touch her. The protagonist doesn't give up. He still has work to do and won't let himself die. Suddenly, warnings begin to appear. One of these warned that the sword had detected level 100 and could be used as equipment, and that he might want to update his current equipment. The protagonist doesn't think about it, so the update starts. And then, another blue light falls on him. The girl is annoyed because this guy was already picking up skills out of thin air. The girl is already enraged with her possessions and is ready to demonstrate the difference between the two. But the protagonist won't let her finish and claims that because of his power, his sword is spread throughout the world territory and uses his mega ability. Suddenly, the ground begins to move and a blue lightning is destroyed. Physics is extremely strong and fights against the girl, but it's the protagonist who got a sudden change thanks to have given himself over to the sword. The main character of the conflict starts to show up the memories of the girl, who tells him to wake up and draws the protagonist's attention because he'd promised to revive her with that game and hasn't done so. And so for this, he's disappointed and leaves. While doing so, the protagonist shouts his name so that later he gets hit by a truck. This was just flashbacks of the girl, and the protagonist wakes up with the sound of the cell phone that was receiving a call. It's again the partner the protagonist only attends to. Infuriated by this, the main character gets a message from the antagonist demanding that he travel to the university and kill a boss in order to win points. Like, comment, and subscribe for part 2.